Shall we start?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we can. Jimmy.
Okay. Let me share the screen. And okay. Can you see the screen? Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, it's good to see everyone really enjoy the time in Seoul, and it was a really fun trip. And it's okay. So this unit is about essentially about my ongoing research about my interest in the interaction between artificial intelligence and human, and also about the creativity and design methodology. And since there was a lot of debate and controversy about the agenda of this unit, and also so I would like to start with give a deeper explanation about the tool and the agenda I was proposing, and just start again with the initial idea about how I came up with this course is so it's about my thinking about the idea of creativity and imagination, and these two images like a way to show how your experience of seeing familiar shape from the cloud can relate it to your personal experience about the object you have experienced. And this is highly related to the way how our brain function to process the data, to examine the shape and trace the profile, and perceive the color or texture from images or from an object. And this imagination is highly relevant to your past experience, so everyone can interpret the set object in different definition. That's why we can use this as a design methodology to design architecture by referencing different kind of images as a concept tool, or referencing even like you need to reference from movie and interpret in different way. It's a way how we perceive the idea, how we design, and then idea goes on to thinking about, even though we can imagine things from the images, but still like the imagination is highly controlled by how you see, like you only see what you want to see. And then, so how do you propose more creativity's idea from here is what I'm interested in. And the topic of apophonia has come from the psychology term apophonia. It's a mental correction from the human brain. Like human tend to recognize things that are related to what you are familiar with. And then, so for other people without those background information, those shape or graphic are just images. There's no information you can extract from there. So, and then that kind of apophonia idea is highly similar to one kind of technique we are using in architecture design very often. And here on the images you can show, you can see the video is this is a really awesome video. You can, if you have time, you can check on YouTube. It's about it's a architecture critic. It's criticizing all the architectural design in the game design or in the like Web3 kind of space. And then because in game design they also use this kind of technique a lot. And the concept of this defamiliarization is initiated from the Russian formalism. And this technique is a device and to perceive the familiar or ordinary in different manner. It can push out our comfort zone and to make us question what we see. So in architecture, we often perform by planning with the appropriation of form and how a form is being represented. So which is like the precedent study in our education. And so like this is in a game control, and this is from the video Ryan create. So on the image on the left, you can see the you can already see the inspiration is from the Anne Pace design in the museum in Paris, and like the pyramid design, but in MPS design is transparent, but here is like solid concrete. And on the image on the right, you can see is like some kind of brutalism copy or rearrangement into the game space. And then this is also related to, is also inside the same game, but the structure or the image that we perceive is, it's kind, you can recognize the ideas might came from the Frank Lloyd Wright's design, like same kind of images, and then Toyo Ito copy Frank Lloyd Wright's design to design a new library. And so this kind of precedent study or to sample from the precedent, sample from the images, kind well how we've been educated and how we design in the field. And now, but now is the current pervasive utilization of AI and search engine in the design field. The challenge we are facing is we can produce tons of iterations from an ideas, text prompt. But in this case, the architect, we are using the AI model created by the people outside of the discipline. We don't know what is inside the data, and then there's no controller. So let's say there's a black box. We don't know what's inside, and then but we are using this tool as our ideation tools to generate idea. So I'm just really question about this new kind of mess. I believe there's a new pedagogical model we can use to teach architectural design in this current time. And this is same images from generate from the Midjourney model and DALL-E model. So again, just really comparing images about an idea, but we don't really know how does it come from, and then what's the real data behind it. And the reason why I mentioned about the technology part inside this personal study is because I'm not sure if you have been this experience like in the design right now. If you have the student from the new generation, they probably show you the precedent or show you the images they like from the social media platform like Pinterest, so Instagram or ArcDaily, and then they show you as a president they want to study and they want to use extract the design concept or composition from there and become their design. But the problem for this is again is everything is being sorted by the algorithm. You don't like you don't know how the algorithm calculate those design. And then in the same time, if you sample this kind of precedent for your project, so you will end up to become a very the public aesthetic about architecture will be very narrow, very single about particular kind of aesthetic. For example, Pinterest has different aesthetic from Instagram because of the user of Pinterest and Instagram probably is different. The user of Pinterest probably will be more like general public. They use it to search for the ideas for the interior design or search the idea by the style about architecture. So if you search architecture design on different platform, you might get different result. And then let's comes the problem of the search. In this generation, we do generation by search on the internet. We don't really do research by going to a library to find a resource to find the citation to trace back to the origin, but we search on the internet. So what's the problem of that is the search is a mirror of the user's belief. So the things you type will be registered or recalled by the algorithm, and what you see will be what you is really like embedded to your thinking about particular things. So it's hard to get you outside of your comfort zone about in terms of thinking something novelty about the design. And this search is also like every search you do change the weight of data on the internet. So collectively, if we search a particular things multiple times, and then it will accumulate becomes a trend on data set in the search engine. So in the end, again, architecture becomes the style becomes move toward the style of architecture controlled by the internet, the data in the internet, and those is like small group of people using the internet to do those kind of search, but the public aesthetic is highly affected by this result on the internet. So there's a data bias in the internet is also what I want to talk about in this plugin. And then, so this is like one of the version, obvious version about how your search will influence your result is like the recommendation system in all kind of platform. You search, the system tell you maybe this is what you like, or someone has been searched for this. So there's a data bias, and then it has its social impact because everything you search is a contribution to the internet and the huge community. And then in the same time, other people's search also reshape the internet data set, and then it comes back to influence your aesthetic of design. And then so there's a strong bias in this action of search, and then find a precedent online, and then it becomes I think pedagogically is maybe as a problem in teaching architecture or in architecture design. And so when you search architecture in Google, this is what appear, and then does this all of images has like in the internet, like when you search, every image becomes really flat. There's no like cultural factor. There's no other aspect of architecture inside. You only judge the images by geometric shape or the color, the aesthetic of the images. The architecture becomes a representation of the object. It's not no longer architecture anymore. And I feel this is what we are facing today. We are designing architecture. We talk about space, but in the end, for example, like competition, we use a money shop to win a competition, or we evaluate the design more based on the imagery. And so the plugin I use in this unit is basically is a Blender version of this one, but so this is like when you are modeling, you can see the image from your created data set. So in this case, like every image goes your data set is being selected by yourself. So the process of selecting the images to the data set, or the process of researching on a particular topic, becomes important than the final product itself. So if we have this kind of design pedagogy model, so student can do because now the culture in the studio is like really production based, and then we also always produce a lot of design based on the predefined theory from the instructor. But I feel architecture, there's more important things about how to train students to think critically. So the process of creating the data is a process of learning the culture, learning the really go deep to study the precedent. And then once you have later data set, you can fit those data set, the image you have been analyzed to the image classification in the model. And then when you start a model, you start to see those images you have been studied, and then you can start to learn the feature, maybe the spatial organization or the appearance, the geometric feature from those images. And then so okay. And just after the workshop, this plugin has been like improved to be able to apply to different platforms. And I feel that will be beneficial for the workshop in the future, or if I could put down this workshop again, it would be much better, because we don't need to spend time to because most of the time it's been like learning how to model in the digital space, but the main focus is really about how you curate your data set and how you evaluate those images or those spaces inside your data set, and then the output itself is just a representation of the idea, the concept. And yeah, so this is, and yeah, so this, because of this that kind of human and AI cooperation feature, the designer has fully control in the process of form binding. The efficiency and the instant response from the AI is the main feature that can distinct this plugin from other kind of data-driven AI model, because it's real-time. You get real-time feedback from the curated data set. And then normally parametric or procedural modeling tools create a consistent multiple iterations by changing the parameter in the like a node-based script. Resource are usually homogeneous, and then this plugin provide a space to facilitate the user to create a heterogeneous output efficiently. So instead of writing sophisticated script, this plugin can like use the texture map to control the distribution of the elements. So you can do like very fast move control on those components on the facade, on the surface, and those components could be panelization of the facade or any kind of material cladding on the facade. And so talking about the efficiency, these are the low countdown model within 25 minutes. And here I will show how I use this plugin, and then later on I will show students' work. And this is the process of form finding for an architecture. And when I was doing this, there was no specific program, but just a site condition, and just kind of model the geometry based on the image I see, and also based on the site condition to response to the site, like circulate more in like a circulation concern, and then the feature or the geometry configuration is from the image itself. And then I use the Pitch2Mist model to generate an interior program. So once you have a Messi model, you can slice your Messi model and to generate the interior program relationship. And then so in this case, once you have a really well-trained model, for example, you have a model specifically for housing, so then you can generate the interior space, the most efficient interior space for your geometry specifically. So that's how I use this tool to create these two different design. Each one of them is done by 2 days, and so you can have different kind of really fast together ideas about an architectural proposal. So basically, I use this plugin as an ideation tools to do the Unit 3, and then Unit 3 is kind of an experiment to see if student with different kind of background knowledge or in different level can also produce something differently, and then based on the images they collect, and then to propose a new conceptual model for an architecture. And here we choose the library as a program and to design. And so for our the workflow for this unit is first we do a site survey. We go to the site to collect the images from the site, and then here the intention was try to ask student to really go into a site to take a picture to see what kind of facade or materials or space is surrounded on the site. So just try to have in this process is already kind of selectively to choose what they want to present in, on the images for the data set. and then later we do a machine vision sampling to scrape the images from the internet based on their concept, and then those images becomes their data set to for them to use in modeling the space. And yeah, and this agenda. So so I ask student to propose, each student to propose 10 keywords about their impression or their ideas about soul, and then and also what's their preferences style for like architecture. I try to combine these two things as their the way for them to design something highly localized to a local cultural element, but at the same time it's also personalized to really personal to related to their aesthetic preference. And then so we choose a site, but it's actually in this project the site and the program doesn't really matter. The what's important in this process is about how they distill the concept from the images, and then how they use these images, convert those images to become a concept model, and then do. And once they have concept model, they can propose, design architecture based on that concept model. So the final output will be highly related to the concept they are proposing. So here I have one example from John Wook, and then I think for his project, what is a successful part of his project for me is not really about the final design. Final design itself, most in like maybe in this unit, because we are doing like kind of mega structure, it doesn't really make sense for library. But I think the successful part for this project is the process of revealing the ideas and then construct what is already known and deconstruct what is already known. So he started from like his fascination about the facade and the signage from the site visit, and then this brought him to study the facade in the city from different time periods, and then to research on style and cultural factor behind it. But I think this is really good start point to initiate a research, and then maybe to propose a design from here. But I just wish we have more time, can go deeper on this part. So yeah, so basically he start to curate his own data set and his preference about architecture based on the facade he observed on the site and also the building he likes. And then yeah, and this is some like the working interface is based on the data set, and then his model, and then the interaction between his model and then the images he collect, and then give you a direction to detail the design. And the other example is from the really controversy project from Johnny, because the soju bottle. And for me, what is being represented in this product doesn't really matter, because just my belief of architecture is like we all propose our theory about architecture, and then like this project could have probably be existing in postmodernism, I don't know, but just like the way we've been training in architecture school, we try to learn the style, learn the particular methodology from the instructor in all kind of studio. But does that is really what we really need in the school? Probably not. We probably need to have to train students to propose their own thinking, their own design philosophy of the objects, and then so this project I just let him to try different stuff, and then maybe, and then but he is the only his project is the only project to get into the interior space. So I just want to show this, like to generate the interior program from the Mason model. And then, so you have really efficient, really fast way to test out does your Mason or your model can fit into the proposal requirement. And so most valuable things I think I got from this workshop exercise is this concept model we have, because I think it's like the student they learn the new kind of modern software and then propose different kind of model based on their ideas in, I think this is done like 1.5 days. And then so but I think like all model has different concept is already pretty successful for me. But maybe in the final product, maybe when it goes to the architecture, it's really hard to rationalize when we talk about architecture, people just really stuck into the space, and then really hard for a student from different level to find the appropriate way to reform their concept model to the final product. So I think yeah, these workshops is more like I try to use this plugin to see if we can accelerate the process of concept design. Maybe we can have different kind of pedagogical approach in teaching architecture design in a school. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have some students from Unit 3 joining. I wish they can turn on their cameras to join us.
I'm sorry, Sumi, did you ask students from Ministry to talk about your personal? I'm sorry.
If you want to talk, you can talk.
No, I was like inviting for you to turn on your camera and join the discussion. I just realized students are coming in just for their own slot. So we still don't have more Unit 3 students.
And the work is like really impressive, and we all already seen like output is like really amazing. I don't know how it can be done in like 1 or 2 days, but and what I was really interested was like the first part of Jimmy's brief. Like I forgot the term, like something matching images with together, or and also the searching algorithm was really kind of like interesting. When you type something, is finding some related some like those kind of, and I see that like the software is really powerful, but my critique was like for the output, I think it can be bigger argument rather than just designing fast. Now it seems like it can be designed in a really easy and fast way, but I don't know, but I think you can make it like more interesting topic with this kind of like idea and also software together. And as you mentioned before, I'm not sure you need program or interior space. I think it doesn't really needs to be building. I think it I don't know. Maybe it's more open discussion with others.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the building, can be any kind of like design or but what I really want to do is like I keep mentioning the efficiencies because like we have all gone to the architecture school and then we spend a lot of time in the studio and then what we get we produce a lot of work for based on your instructor style. We learn from their knowledge, but I mean this kind of teaching model is only exists after Beaux-Arts. Like before that, it was just in the beginning of architecture they study Beaux-Arts by learning the style, the construction, and then now like everyone propose their own theory of architecture, and then in the school we learn this theory, but this theory doesn't really help us, but we still doing this, and then how can student be beneficial from this kind of teaching model? So what if we can design something really quick? Like for example, like you, Sumi has her own style of architecture. What if she can put all the style or her style or a theory into a data, and then we just give student to produce iteration from there, and then we can have other time to really think about to propose their own statement about architecture. I don't think I feel maybe it's just a school I go to. I don't know about other school, but just I feel you spend tons of time to do other people's work because their research for the design, not really your design.
And I have one question. I mean, it's like a like a computational design is I mean, I think the proper point is iteration.
Yes.
I mean, but as I saw your project and then you when I see your final outcome, there are no evaluation process. I mean, it's more like a like like a mixer, right? Just a mixer, and then you put the ingredient and then grind it and then come out. But you have to evaluate. You taste it. It's not done well. It's not what you expected. You have to do again, but you don't have those kind of process. It's just done, prepared, and then finally come out, and that's it. So I feel like,
but you can remodel it again. You don't need to stay with the final outcome. You can evaluate your output and then you remodel it again.
but you do not argue with the evaluate and self assessment, like a process at all. We just, I don't know if might there or not, but that's like the questioning, right? So for instance, like a Johnny's work, I'm quite interested in quite joke kind of humor there, and then they suddenly cover it up with the soju bottle, right? And then when this idea come out, and then there might be kind of like those kind of outcome is really variable, whether kind of from the image collection kind of thing. So it have to be kind of argument are there. I mean, but we missed that part. That's why I bit like curious about I don't know. So actual outcome is really architectural things or not, or kind of things, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in those kind of argument part, right? Rather than the final outcome. And that's my point. But I mean, when I saw you a student like the presentation day and a couple months ago, they normally do not mention about it. So that is a bit, like a missing point, I think.
Actually, I think there are some of the very critical points in terms of the technology you utilize, but I think I couldn't have the chances to hear like what kinds of the algorithms or the technique you actually utilize. For example, like I think it is very like critical part to what kinds of the image similarity the algorithm you use, because it could be like some the object detection based or some the edge detection based, and then the result could be the completely different.
Mhm.
And also I also feel like you also mentioned that the internet is some sort of the bubble. It also retain your on the preference, and then based on that the preference, the internet just shows like the similar some of the results. I mean, some of the related the taste related the images, but at the same time, I think you also creating your on the bubble, just curating your on the data set, and then just the engine also can only show some the similar images in your the data set. So I think instead of like just curating your some the small bubble, what about just connecting this the software to the internet directly, and then just find some the similar the results in there? I think it could be more the diverse the images. And in terms of the pix-to-pix model, I actually I don't like I couldn't see like the details, so I assume that you just curate some the diverse from the building the plans, and then it's got the corresponding the color map, and then train the pix-to-pix. But I feel like there are some the lots of some the different the plan making, the plan design strategy, mostly related to based on its the typology, let's say. So for example, like hospital has its own some the different the planning strategy, like some the doctor the circulation should be separate from some the other the patient, for example. And then in terms of the residents, for example, there's some of the two main spaces, private and public. So what I mean in here is that based on that the typology, the plan should have some their own the logic in the typology manner. So that means instead of just putting all the plan together, what about just separate them based on that the typology, and then train the pix-to-pix model separately, and then load the model based on like what kinds of the typology the user wanted to create. I mean, in terms of the building typology. For example, if user wanted to like design some the residential apartment, it could also narrow down some the residential train the pix-to-pix model, so that the user can retrieve some the already plan design applied some the results, rather than some the museum like plan or some the unrelated the typology the results. Yeah, it was like a little long, but yeah.
No, I think the pix-to-pix command you mentioned is like it is really right to the point. And I think I've mentioned in the presentation like this. I just showed a workflow or how pix-to-pix can be migrated from the like Colab really like slow workflow to the one platform workflow. And then I mentioned like once you have the specific training model for a specific kind of hybrid building, and you can use that model to generate something like for interior plan for you. But I was just trying to show the workflow. But definitely the data set should be just what I like you suggest, like based on the building type, it would be more accurate to respond like what's the a real interior program can be. I kind of use this model as a metaphor to talk about architectural education. Like what like the discriminator is the instructor in the school. What they do is like they help you to analyze your data and then to give you a suggestion of your president. And then you start to learn from a president to do something new. And then the question I really have, it's not about the architecture of here. It's about, is this the right way to teach architecture? I think that's what we need to think about.
Yeah, I kind of really appreciate like you developed and clarified your argument a lot since last summer, and I think now it's more clear that you are actually critiquing the architectural educational model. Before, like, it was a little bit vague between architectural education model or about the practices, design practices in architectural offices. And now it seems like I want to first I want to ask whether the OO is the solution to your educational provocation, which is certainly not have to be. It doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be that software to be your answer. You know, so your research and your question and provocation can really evolve. And I really appreciate that position because, you know, normally we had in our architectural, you know, not a long history, the failure of architectural theory is that we were developing theories for the desired outcome. So bad example is the discrete architecture and parametric system. So these theories were really developed for a certain very specific outcomes, and you know, developing arguments just to justify those. So I think I'm pretty sure you're not trying to do that, and certainly because of that, I feel like your software or your whatever you kind of developed as it doesn't have to be always the answer of it. Of course, today you can present it as a trial of the process of this research as a bigger research agenda. But it's just the only small part of it, I believe. And as what you are questioning, are we in our educational model, current educational model, are we teaching style or are we teaching design methodology? I think that's really different, and teaching style, how it looks like, it might be able to solve through this kind of image-based tutorial, you know, AI teaching. I think when you really provocate this, you can also like in the same time try to think about whether your software or your suggestion is really doing that. You know, because Jimmy, you're doing both. You're questioning, but you're also suggesting. I think it's really valuable, but it's often also very problematic or questionable because you always have to question and answer that question. You know, but maybe it doesn't really do that immediately. But yeah, it's a thought process, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to do like discrete architecture, you know. So yeah, and then I'm really quite curious, can you really communicate those design methodologies through your software or your design pipeline? And whether it's always have to be AI driven, you know, that's also another thing that we can just question. Or yeah, but I really appreciate your arguments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had like few more, one more. There were questionable provocation, in my opinion. You mentioned about the bias in data. and also provocated the way currently architectural practices are designing certain personal styles and methods, and educational model is very personal, but that is very specific to boutique offices and boutique schools. Like SCI-Arc is definitely, it's about all studios are very personal. They're teaching methodologies of that very specific design style, but most of the schools, or probably like, 99% of other schools are not like that, and that also the practices. So it's totally fine that you are arguing for certain specific things, because they are very important offices and schools in our society right now, but or in our industry. But we also need to accept the fact that it's only a part of it. So there are some special needs of this kind of education and practices.
And then another thing on, if you against the existing architectural educational model, right? In the sense, you have to mention it, what kind of point is valuable in terms of, you know, or against existing educational things. Otherwise, you know, your answer is so general. We have to think about new architectural educational model. I mean, it can be anything, but I'm interested in why your methodology, what kind of, you know, architectural, you know, point that will be valuable. Well, why we have to think about that way. You have, if you give us some kind of hint for this, it will be great.
Because I think, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
But because from my 2% of my experience, I don't think studio-based education is valuable in the school right now. I feel like everything you learn, everything you've done in school, and then when you graduate, you have to face in another reality about architecture, and that is probably we need to, like, I don't know, just like I feel there's another aspect of architecture, but now, like, maybe not all the school, but most of the trend school, the school we will go is focusing on designing try to create the personal identity for each student, and to propose something like a avant-garde design, aggressive proposal about architecture. But we all know architecture is not that. Architecture is between the day-to-day life. It's like there's 90% of architecture is outside there, but we are in a small bubble to do this. And then so I think there's maybe not completely erase the studio culture of design school, but there must be another option you can choose, and then you must let students know what they are getting into once they start architecture school, not just finish 5 years and then go to grad school, and then you know, this is not what I want. This is not I sign up to. I want to change my career. That's like happening a lot. That I don't just.
But Jimmy, I want to say that that's actually a very short history of that, and definitely our education doesn't have that requirement anymore. But if I tell you my experience, I graduated from a very conservative Chinese school, which they were educating people to be able to just go to an institute right away. So I really didn't learn anything about how to design things. I was like always learning how to draw a fire escape, or draw like how many toilets, enough toilets, and you know, enough. But there are very specific design schools. They are very popular. There are so many architectural students are going into, and now now nurturing people to become a boutique architect lead, right? But we don't have any more of those job, job requirements. So I think it's probably a right timing to really provoke that, but I think you want to also refer to the previous version of that, in our education, why we needed those kind of boutique architects education and studio-based things have become so popular lately. And then now we are just educating too many people to unnecessarily, and there's no job after they graduate. That's why we are talking about different educational model, yes. But that's very specific, really. Like you provoke that in SciArc, definitely, in AA, yes. But even we talk to Yonsei University students, they are not interested in doing what we are doing because like they're not gonna get a job. Like it's already very much concerned.
And I have a and I think for the educational things that is enough. I think I want a little bit more further. And I thought and the program you developed is much more for the ordinary just people in the public. It's not for the professional, I think. So people can control whatever they wanna design something out of AI things, right? So have you thought it is the program for just people in the public, not for the professional? So yeah, have you thought about it?
No, but someone has asked about the same question, like maybe this program could be a program for like children to experience architecture design. Maybe there's education tools for kids. And but I don't know, just maybe if there's a because now it requires the high a degree of the scale on the 3D model knowledge. So I'm not sure how can maybe if there's a like AR VR stuff you can just model by your hand. I don't know which, but I think that
But I think although we are in the professional environment, I think, but now is the moment, the kind of just normal people and professional, the boundary is blurred.
mhm,
So I think that's very, so although we are not just make effort to do that, the world is changing like that way, I think, because our clients came to the office with many images they want to design,
yeah,
or yeah, so they asked us to what to do, and then there are also information all over the world. So I think the mass people are changing a lot. So so they have already some ability as well. They learn many things from YouTube, etc. So it's quite different circumstance. So I think when you designing, when you're making at this moment, it's quite really strong tools maybe for the peoples, not only for the architectural education. So that's what I'm really interested in.
I see.
Or
Yeah,
yeah,
so
also further I think research things, researching the information, gathering data. I just wondering why you don't put some kind of very special quality of architecture rather than space shape as bird eye view. So that's why all your product from the final product is looking at designing or shape, not special condition, but quality of architect. So the roles of architect is how to deliver together both inside and outside. So I see that's gonna be maybe, I don't know why, but it is one things I wanna critique. Okay.
I agree with the some part of this, I mean, like especially the public part, like for normal people, because like I mean, I think the Mid Journey is really good. I think one of the good example, right? So even though you cannot draw the single line now, but just by typing some text, you can draw some kind of like art, like really art. You can have some kind of art piece, like yeah, but just without the just any art. How can I say that art talent for the art or talent for the drawing. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, to be honest, like when I see your application, of course it's amazing. But what I was thinking about that, like, it seems like it's kind of like, how can I say that? Like doing some of, I don't know if this is correct, say to this, but the like doing some kind of the AI's work by human's hand, like with some intentions, right? So like, for example, like it is just following the shape, but the like, well, I mean, when your application shows some images, like it is just kind of not just, but I mean, it is following the kind of the shapes, and then it try to show the good examples for that, but without any intentions of the users, like the Dongyun said before. So, well, I mean, I'm not judging this, but yeah, I'm just trying to tell what I felt, yeah, from your application. That's it. And anyway, somehow my point was that I go back to the my original point was like, yeah, I think it's really good to bring it to the public stage, because I think even though, which means, I mean, your application is like, even though people doesn't know how to design the building, I think it suggests a really good way to the shape in a good way, right? So maybe you could think about that. I mean, yeah, just
Yeah, it's a good suggestion.
So
Any
we're gonna move
student-
on.
Yeah, or any student reflection for the final? Jungwoo.
So I was in Unit 3, and I felt the same as Chris said, like the Chris said. So what I felt was, okay, what the works that I'm doing are the process that I can make a cool and fast design, but I'm not sure if I can say this design is a good design, because there wasn't any evaluation process, like whether this design is good or not. So that was the point. I was like quite curious during the whole workshop process. But on the other hand, so in that sense, I was like also curious. So what if there is also evaluation process on this whole process, then maybe like we can make a good design with good design very fast. Well, I thought that way, so that was my like thinking about this workshop.
Thank you so much. Let's move on, and we will have a discussion session shortly after the final one. Unit 4, please. Hanjun?
Lloyd,
Yeah.
Lloyd is going to share.
I'm gonna share this.
I was looking at the Lloyd.
No, is it showing?
Not yet.
It's weird. Oh, every time. Let me try this again. Okay, and then I'll press slideshow here. Okay, now?
Yeah.
Yes, but
Oh. Huh. That's not.
yeah, but without loading in, well, I think it's
No,
fine anyway. Yeah.
Looks fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, there's an image on the cover, but we just somehow it's not loading. So we are Unit 4, Elemental Sabotage. I guess we all know us, the 3 tutors. Yeah, so we kind of continue from our last year's agenda on architectural homogenization, and we kind of pinpoint the origin of this homogenization as the industrialization and the invention of concrete, standardization, and our obsession for efficiency and optimization, essentially. And I kind of talk about how we kind of talk about how that efficiency-driven technologies created homogenized, standardized elements, and that kind of drove away a lot of cultural and what culturally diverse architectural elements. So this is just like an example of how we went about it. So not only in creating columns and walls and glazings around buildings around the world, we also started fighting different conditions in almost in the exact same way. So that's actually a really cool diagram of Victorian chimney placement. So apparently there are that many fireplaces to kind of keep the building warm, and underneath there's obviously undol, as most Koreans would know. And now it's all reduced down to insulations in the wall, and then the kind of hidden away heater, mechanical heating units. And then we started looking into why is diversity actually important. And after a lot of research, we found out that in both scientific, ecological, and social experiments and studies, diversity is often directly linked to resilience. So we kind of wanted to apply this model within architecture as well, and then see if we can I mean, we're not going to be able to say that diversity within architecture will be more resilient. Like, I don't think I can say that with certainty because it's just not tested, but it's one of our attempts to kind of diversify architecture. So this is the kind of model that we used last year also to show what we're trying to do. So there are different kind of diverse cultural architectural elements converging into a singular kind of architectural moment, or like standardized architectural moment, let's say. And then what we're trying to do is, on the right side, which is re-diversify and kind of diverge different pathways to maybe do carry out the same function through different morphologies, with different logics that can lead to future development of different diverse pathways. So we thought, so this is something that we picked up. So we were looking at Umberto Eco's notion of connotation and denotation. So it's how he talks about an element or design element should be able to give away through our empirical experiences what the function of that element is, or what the symbolic function of that object is. And that kind of calls for using, visual and logical cues that we already know from elements to be used again in future design, but slightly altering it or bettering it every time. And maybe we thought, okay, rather than kind of targeting bigger architectural audience, since we're talking about, more specified kind of pathway within the global, specified cultural pathway within like the global architectural trend, we can try to really exhaust all possible combination of different visual elements from a singular cultural zone. So say we'll put all the roofs that were used in Korea throughout history and modern time, and they will have some visual cues and logic that are embedded within them. And if we somehow can utilize that to create more variations, that would be the definition of exhausting possible combinations of, you know, embedded logics and visual cues. And we thought machine learning is basically a perfect way to do it. Because machine learning obviously kind of works from the data set to create more variations within it, right? Like not create variations, that's not exact purpose, but to have a data set, get an understanding and create different variations that fits into the description of that data set. And there are two ways to go about it. So there's what we call like more generic machine learning. So that's what we call Midjourney and DALL-E. DALL-E and Midjourney kind of go into that category of generic kind of machine learning, where they scrap all images from Google or Wikipedia and create different variations from that understanding of very generic images. So you do not have any control over what data you actually choose to use. So this is basically the tool for creating generic architecture, so to say. Whereas what we thought could be actually useful in our experiment would be to use GAN, where we create data set, we curate data set, and we get, you know, learnings from the data set to make variations. So it's really the difference of kind of localized data set versus generic data set. And this year, we decided to use 3D GAN, which basically, which Dong-Yun will actually explain.
Yeah. And so I'd like to introduce some of the key explanation of the machine learning techniques we utilize, and then the design process consequentially. So a definition can have several corresponding forms. For example, the concept, let's say chair, can be materialized in diverse forms, and the definition can personally be interpreted based on the experiences or cultural differences, and even the functions. And in machine learning fields, this process appears in the different sequence. So instead of the definition, the machine learning model requires actual the 3D data set to extract the features, and then it is able to generate 3D objects which retain the learned characteristics. So we saw that these processes of human and machine are very similar and can be combined to reach the missing link between the definition and its form. So that means we can define something and curate its corresponding 3D modelings, and then 3D GAN can learn the spatial features and forms of the data set and regenerate the 3D modelings. So does the overall workflow look like this? So students start with defining their own functional component and collected the reference images to actually understand the definition, and constructed the 3D data set accordingly. Then the data set was used to train the 3D GAN to elicit the patterns in the data, to decode the common features between the data set, and then the generated the 3D modeling from the 3D GAN and analyze the result to use them as the architecture, the actual architectural applications. So from the last year experiments, which focused on creating a design driven by a happy harmony between the utilitarian architecture and the culture-based aesthetic, our unit came up with the following bold statement from Reflect functions. And this year, Unit 4 teacher identified 4 base functional is the component of the architecture that might manifest into different forms in varying cultures. So we thought that machine learning process using 3D GAN could elicit some the clues to what the most probable forms of the support could be in Korea, or what the most how could it look like. So it will retain the basic function of support and show some of the cultural diversity together. So for example, these pictures reveals how different columns were used for supporters throughout the different eras in Korea, and then analyzing the probable morphologies of these the functional element, the probable morphologies of these the functional architecture, the components would provide insight into how Korean reflect functions into forms. So control the parameters, students were asked to define the function of the component to confine and target specific morphology type. And according to the functional, the component defined by the students, they gathered the reference images first, and then created 3D data set based on it. And then after that, these 3D modeling were then categorized and then pre-processed, and then put them into the 3D GAN for the morphology generation. So this is some example of the training. And then in the training process of the 3D GAN, it sequentially learned the probability of presence of all the points, which means that probabilistic the distribution of the presence of the cubes, let's say. So it includes the overall form and relationship between the adjacent the cubes and etc. And after the training process, the student has the chances to generate 3D objects from the 3D GAN, and then interpret the results, and then select the object to use them as the design the component. So this is the over the workflow, starting from the data definition, and then create on the data set, and then train the 3D GAN from that data set, and then generate lots of diverse 3D modeling, and then analyze it, and then think about how we use it as the architecture, the application, and then also how to, and then it's the intermediate relationship between them.
So yeah, by following those sequences, maybe we don't want to do the some kind of repetitions of the work. So maybe we just want to have the one instance, one example, which is like the temporary encounters, which was done by the Sun-Gyu Kim and Jian Kim and Sola Yu. So for example, this team, they started defining with the canopy as like you say, something that creates a shaded interior shelter, and then flooring like the empty and flat surfaces, and opening as just opening space between the elements and elements, right? And then can you move on to the next page? So yeah, I mean, according to their definitions, they collected references from the traditional and modern architecture in Korea, and they turned into the 3D model data. Next. Well, so these are using those 3D data, they trained the 3D GAN like this one, and then next. So as you can see, after the various results from the 3D GAN, they divided the result within some morphological intentions. And there are some, you can see that there are some variations of the canopies, and next, and flooring, next, and openings. So from these variation of the shapes, they define their new functions for the shapes. So for example, they define the functions from this shape, like the temporary and mediate, and passage. So by applying all of these three functions, they decided to call it as a pavilion with the space that forms a temporal relationship between the user and the space, and a space that challenges the surrounding physical boundaries. So, well, I mean, this moment is kind of just one kind of resulting data application, which is just one single moment of that. But the more interesting point of this project was, can you go to next page? So it tried to look into the in-between moments, like the from the moments to between the moments. So it shows the like the different shape of the not just by the variations. It also shows the different shapes of different like the morphological shapes from the same functions. And next. And this is the entire view of their application. So next, this is the circulation by Jia Xin and Haejin Jeon and Ki-tae Kim. So as you can see, these are the capture of the latent work, which is code, and then this like as you can see from the moment to the moment, they can see the different like the variations of the each points. And then next. And then if we have the some examples of the resulting just data, the capture of the data application is this one. Is like resonance from the Minji Kim and Harim New and Yu-Yao Lee. So they use the support, opening, and flowing to make these applications. Next. The other good result is the moving parts by Lion Kim and Eddie Che and Isabel Solin. But a little bit different from the others, like they try to put their own 3D models by their intentions to make the better application in between all the other components. So next. So this is how they construct their mechanism like that. So first of all, they just use the result from the 3D GAN. After that, within some intentions, they input the other 3D datas, which make the result a bit clearer. And then next, yeah, this is some moments of their applications.
So after doing this exercise workshop, we got a couple of findings. So that was obviously a derivation of new morphologies for functional elements, which are those defined kind of canopy, flooring, opening, and support, and exploration into new combinatorial possibilities of varying functional elements. So that's like when you saw the latent walk kind of morphing and changing in shapes, and through just capturing different moments, we could kind of pick on different moments to really work from to create further designs, or at least saw on the possibility of that, right? So you kind of see all these GAN models working and overlapping and going away. You start seeing different combinations that couldn't really have been possible without putting this through the whole machine learning process, which we thought was super interesting. And lastly, finding the relationship between conceptual verbal definition and its form variation. So this is something that everyone struggled with. So what is actually super important, we figured, is to create data set, obviously, because we're curating the data set in the first place, and defining what goes into the data set through sentences was one of the most difficult things, because if you create it too loosely, then you start having to integrate 3D models or data that are not really fitting into what you want that to be. And if it's too tight, then it's, you know, not different to any other design that you're going to see. So that's something that we try to work with whilst trying to also create some wiggle room for further design possibilities. So that was something that was really interesting to work with, but something that we also have to work on ourselves later to create some kind of logic system to allow that to happen better next time. So that's, yeah, within limitation. So first of all, the relationship between the definition of each functional element and its parameters were not clearly defined. So that's something that I just talked about. And the data sets lack objective standards that can be clearly parameterized. So even though we tried our hardest to define you know, a data set within a definition and really work around it to create parameters, still changing that into 3D points, numeric values, and assigning, you know, existing architecture elements in a very specific combination was difficult. And that's something, again, as stated previously, that has to be worked on. And lack of understanding in 3D dataset curation in general within architecture. So like, we also figure that there are so many different ways of creating 3D models, different purposes of them, but there's not been really a collective effort to create one more, like a centralized way of doing 3D dataset curation. So that was interesting to know. And obviously, not to mention, as everyone mentioned before, the time constraint, which is just less than 2 weeks, which could have allowed for, you know, if it were longer, it could have been much bigger data set, much clearer defined data set as well, which would have created much clearer outputs as well. But yeah, that's not something we can control. And future work. So we thought it'd be quite nice to just say what we think we can do in the future and what would be interesting to work on. So develop a set of clear architecture parameters that can be used to describe verbal cues, which we keep saying it, but it just shows the importance of connecting verbal cues to actual parameters and how we create data sets from that, because machine learning really is all about creating data set, right? And developing a set of methodologies that can better create the 3D data set for future usage. Develop a set of logic that can utilize outputs from 3D GAN models. So number 3 is regarding the latent walk was one way to do it. Capturing moments and creating interpretations like that the last unit did is one of them. So it's really how to interpret or like come up with a system to interpret output 3D models into an architectural design, because that's like a whole different topic. And develop a component-based logic to utilize output as an architecture component, which is so this methodology can be implemented in architecture design process. Yeah. And these were our lovely students. And that was us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe I'll start. So I really appreciate the work and all the thoughts. And one thing I really appreciate is really bringing in the latest tool and algorithm to explore. Although we have Midjourney, you know, we have DALL-E, all these like high resolution image generators, but even if it's very fuzzy, not very yet customized or commercialized. But I really appreciate that you guys are bringing in and trying it and try to do something out of it. And we are very sure that very soon 3D GAN or 3D generating models is going to be available like Midjourney and DALL-E, you know. But we are in a kind of a having this conversation in ahead. So I think I really appreciate that as a pedagogical point of view. And I think because of I know that your workshop from last year, that's why for people who know what you did last year, it's easier to understand what you're trying here, but you didn't manage. But there, I think the let's say a little bit more success of last year than compared to this year was that the clarity of the data set. And of course, the algorithm is very new, very early stage. It's very difficult to train. We all, of course, we all appreciate that. But because of that stage, the outcome is very fuzzy. But also the clarity of the two different categories that you're trying to merge or fuse, such as floor to column, for example. I think it was the choice of that kind of keywords as an architecture function. I think it was very tricky thing to tackle. I really appreciate your bravery to really try that. But I think because of that, today's discussion will be also about, you know, a lot of about like function and functional elements, because to be honest, it's not really about functional elements, and you're trying to defunctionalizing and misaligning different functionalities of different forms and trying to understand it differently. So I was kind of thinking, how about we use the term style or like appearance instead of function in the beginning? For example, if it's a Baroque look or Korean look or like a Chinese look building elements, what do they mean? And then the style or appearance doesn't really have to be so critical to the function and form relationship. So that's why I think I have a regret on that a little bit. The choice of the use of function as your kind of sabotaging topic. And also I was thinking maybe the key point of your research or the most interesting thing about it is about really testing the relationship between the input data and output form. And now you also wanted to do something with the output form. So there were like a lot of things happening. That's why that's why there are you know, like it's compressed kind of agenda or curriculum. But I was thinking maybe what is the most important part in your pedagogy, which I think is the technical part. I don't know if you agree or not, but or maybe something else. But maybe next time you do it, maybe you can kind of put some focus on some of those aspects more in a zoom in and close up.
So when I was talking to Dongyun and Hanjun about creating this brief, it it actually seemed near impossible for me, because last year was very clearly defined, two very clearly defined data set that was also loose, but I got a bit greedy, and I also wanted to create integrate a bit of theoretical discourse that I've been pursuing myself, which is about dehomogenization and the reflection of actual function inform. So that was actually one of the things that we wanted to tackle. But after having heard what you said, maybe it could have been better if it was just about more generic aesthetics, or even just one specific function instead of 4 different functions, and then having to tackle all of them and then merge them later on.
You don't have to listen to me, you know, I can't argue.
Yeah, but I'm just reflecting.
Yeah,
Because that's the point.
I see your focus now.
Mm.
Yeah, I see.
And
But we
once
also
we're-
had a, yeah, sorry, please.
No, please. Sorry. But when we're doing it, we actually realized that the most important work that we're actually doing within the unit became much more about data than the output. Because how you create data and how data gets processed determines everything what you can do with it. So we started, so like any conversation that pursued kind of after the workshop was really about like how we define the data, how we process the data, how can we do a parametric, you know, parameterize the data next, you know, things like that. So yeah, I understand it's not also the easiest to understand because it's so many things so condensed.
Yeah, I also agree that it's also because of the big teamwork.
Yeah.
And I just realized that in our meeting, Jaewon, I think, was actually questioning whether you really need to do this sabotage with AI, you know, in your unit, or is it because 3 of you are together, that's why you have to do this, you know? So there were these kind of things that it's totally fine, you know, but I kind of get certain processes in this kind of format. It emphasizes certain, you know, aspects. And then I don't think you want to just wash yourself away for this collaboration. We also want to see everybody's color. So because that is your unique perspective that I don't have, for example. So I'm really interested in hearing that and knowing more. But I think maybe you guys are such a good team and just trying to listen to each other and be respectful. But I'm really curious about how you want to push this further and really create this argument, because I've seen a lot of computational design projects and like algorithmic based projects. I'm really curious in this format of our kind of collaboration, we can have different kind of ways to see this. So yeah, and I believe all of our committee, our team is really open to that exploration. And that's the very good thing about the short-term format of workshop. And yeah, I would love you to also push that, and it's great.
I kind of think that we somehow needed to create design outputs.
We can question that. It doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
we wanted to, but all 3 of us wanted to create something like some
Okay.
design at the end,
I
and
see,
that was
I see.
our ambition. But I think what was really interesting is, so for instance, if we put every element from past to present that was used as a column in Korea into a data set, right? It would calculate the probability of what occurs the most, and bunch of different variations of, you know, what is probable within the Korean discourse. But then it will, in our minds, we thought it will give us something we didn't think of. So maybe, you know, like an I-beam with, you know, bracketing supports pushing out, or
Mhm.
something super interesting, but that's still within the Korean logic system, and that we
Mhm.
thought the AI could achieve, but not within the time frame. So,
Not also not within this amount of data input. Because
yeah, really.
images were more successful because you can put thousands of images and train
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But I'm sure it's gonna get there sometime soon. But I think you can also really try to talk about different styles of columns, as you're saying, like from European column to Korean column, like what proximity and proportions
Yeah.
means those style or those regions.
So actually, the reason why I introduced this the 3D GAN is that the current machine learning the field is mostly focused on some of the 2D image based, because it is more the efficient, as you say, like the 3D GAN, or like the style GAN, or like there are like bunch of the run the machine learning models, because there are like lots of the problems in the 3D things. Like in addition to adding the one dimension, the required the computing time is like tremendous, and so I thought that, so given the time frame, and I don't want it to like do some of the similar like stuff like what the other doing, like for example, like we could just prompt some of the text and then generate image, and then we don't know what's the actual the logic or what's the principle in it. So I just wanted to like leave it like away from some of the black box, but just wanted to create our on the data set. That means we have some of the intentional the logic or intentional the direction for like what we wanted to like achieve, and also wanted to like put some of the new dimension, which is the 3D. So that's why we introduced the 3D GAN. But yeah, there's some of the always some of the limitation, especially some of the performance of this 3D GAN. But I think it's like pretty good some of the exercise or the experiment to utilize some of the new, bring some of the new technology into some of the architecture field. Actually, it is widely used already, but I think it's like also pretty good experiences for me to get some of the others, the insight and the opinions about it.
And I really thank you for your presentation, and I really like mostly about Umberto Eco's pages. I really appreciate the pages. And I have several questions. And first thing is, actually, I thought interpretation is really important in the project, because architect will interpret out of so many images produced by AI. So by interpretation, you guys are making collage, making some kind of defunctionalized structures, etc. define, right? But is there any chance to make AI decide, not us, not by us? So it could possible in the future. Maybe I heard it is possible, right? So if it is possible, why don't you do that in this process? Yeah, that's the question now.
I think that the designing judging is like pretty tricky. For example, if you have like some any chances to use some of the Midjourney or some of the DALL-E, there is some of the tab called the variations. So that means you could also explore some of the different options from the same the text prompt. So that means, so it means some like giving you some that judging moment, and also the just DALL-E or the Midjourney can only give you some the single image, and then we could also say that this is some the judgment from decided the image by the AI, but actually within the AI, AI actually created by the human. So that means AI should have some the algorithm or the clue that made by the human. So I think the I feel like you're saying like some of the self like judging some of the AI is like possible, but I think the under the logic, I think the human intervention should be necessary, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's why we just like just manually pick some our the alternative, our the variation, and then push forward to design some the project.
Actually, I actually want to ask Tong Yun in this same thread, right? Maybe I'm complete like maybe I'm wrong completely because you know this is not my expertise either. But I don't know if you take photos, right? Like I mean, I do photography sometimes on the side, and the biggest jump was obviously from analog to digital, and then from digital we have everything from, you know, like 100 megapixel ultra high res camera that you can customize everything to an iPhone. An iPhone has a very specific algorithm that changes what it sees into what is generally accepted as a good image, right? And that's an AI's work. So I think it's the degree of our intervention and the control that we want to have in creating the final outcome that determines whether it should be up to AI or not, is my interpretation. But I don't know, does it make sense?
So do you mean like, so the intervention of the AI is necessary or not?
Like, as in, like, do you think AI can, I mean, I believe that AI can generate something in the end, but don't you think that's for the generic, not specific? Because it's all about the degree of control that you want to have within the process.
I think that's gonna be like possible. So actually, so in the AI field, there's some the time frame, like based on some of the technical advancement. So actually, we are in the phase 1, and they're like phase 2 and phase 3. So we are also aiming to create the AGI, which is the artificial generic intelligence, and then it is still like developing. So I think it's gonna be possible in some day, but I'm not sure how it look like. Yeah, but what I wanted to say is that like the scientists are also researching on it.
I think in a way, I remember the Darth Vader house that's on uploaded in the Facebook before. That house designed by AI, I thought. I remember. So that could be one of the clue of the unit to develop the moment. I think the moment is very important. You guys mentioned the moment, right? So moment from the column to floor, right? So something will come up, flowering column, something like that. Yeah. So I thought you guys trying to make something like that. I thought. So in order to define what it is, you have to have some kind of criteria in order to interpret by human being, right? So still you are doing as a human being, the AI is developed progressive crossover at this stage in the architectural discourse. But if you are developing, if you go further as who is architect, right? So that could be really interesting topic. If AI designing something and suggest something and interact between us. So AI suggests something and then we do something together it's gonna be, I think, next level for the unit. I don't know, maybe in 10 years. So
So
in a way, it's very interesting topic it comes is what is the role of architect now? Maybe based on the unit 3 and 4. So yeah,
I-
have you thought those kind of thinking by discussion between tutors?
is-
actually, yeah. So actually, I am planning to create some that kinds of the tools. So for example, like as you might heard there's some the multimodal based the model. For example, Midjourney or DALL-E, and the Stable Diffusion was released recently. So I am planning to so export the Rhino viewport, and then also can type some sort of like text prompt, and then the Stable Diffusion can import the Rhino viewport images, and then started convert that images to fit the text prompt, and then we'll resend that images to the Rhino the viewport, so that the user can interact with the AI real time. And then when they change the viewport and then change some the text prompt, they can also receive some the AI generate images together. So I think it could be some the option or example to collaborate with the AI and human. Yeah, just as an example.
Yeah, just for your information, someone just published yesterday on Blender exactly what you are trying to say. Just like is in Blender, they combine the stable diffusion inside of Blender. So now you model something, and then you can type in and then render the style of your model, and then you
Right.
change your model, and then yeah. But it's published like this week. I think is a plugin for Blender. So but I can share a link. You guys can check.
Good. So time is really, everything changing really rapidly.
Can you share the link?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
In the chat room, please.
Yeah.
I just find it quite interesting how AI and these programs keep giving us more options to choose from. So, you know, even nowadays, even when I started studying, which is not that long ago compared to a lot of people on the panel, but I didn't use Pinterest. And, you know, you kind of start using them, you really start to curate, you know, input, and that becomes your, you know, architectural discourse almost. So I just kept thinking that we are becoming more of a curator than an actual designer at some regard. And that's why I have this obsession with, now through this social algorithms, developed this obsession with data set and curating the data set, so I can be like still a designer of the curatorial set, you know. But I think it's the I think the discourse is really interesting, because you keep being given more options to choose from, and as things get more automated, unless you know how to actually code and create programs to automate, then you're in the seat of a curator.
But I think still, although maybe you are thinking that way, I think the unit for needs to have, I think, common perspectives of architectural element in the unit. So I think you guys need to address or making argument what architectural element is in the unit, and what are you guys trying to do. I think the first part of presentation is much more generic things, you know, or we all are dealing with kind of counterpart of modernism, right? So I think you need to have a little bit more your own perspectives of architectural element in order to make a kind of criteria to decide whatever of new things. Yeah.
All right. We have 4 more minutes for this unit, and then we can move on to our general discussion. But yeah, so I wish everybody can just unmute. Don't worry about your noise. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and then just speak up. In general, you can continue with some missing comments or feedback that you gave to all 4 units. And we also want to discuss about our social algorithm workshop for next week and going forward. I would like to introduce Jaewon Lee and Taesong Lee will be our next directors from next year onwards. Yeah. Yes, congratulations. And June and myself have been leading the group for 10 years. I think it was too much. And we are very happy to move on to a next era and generation of this workshop and giving a new kind of color and vibe and wind. Yeah, June, do you want to say anything?
No, but we're not disappearing anyway. We'll be
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, we'll be here, but we
I'll
want
be a
to.
student. Yay.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And then we always want some change every year. So I think inviting a new directors to this workshop is always it will be a sort of a big change, hopefully, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, Taesong and Tae-woo, do you want to say anything about
Yeah.
maybe what you want to
Maybe
discuss
introduce a
today
little bit
and-
about your.
Yeah, our tutors.
As you know,
also
I'm the
suggest-
song. Yep. And then honestly, I don't want to be a next 10 years, right? I don't wanna
Yeah,
be
me
a
too.
You have
couple
to
years.
No. We have a-
minimum 10 years.
No way.
we have a plan for 3 years at least, but
Yeah, I mean, time flies, like new techniques arise, as you know, Jimmy mentioned 3D text version is come out already. So, 3, maybe 4 years, 2 years enough. Yeah. So, I mean, anyway, I don't know, Jaewon and me, we'll our best. And maybe, I don't know, we'll be a similar format, but, my point is, I mean, workshop must be, like a fun and, everyone has to be enjoy the time and rather than, stressful thing. So that's it. Jaewon, do you want to say something or no?
I'm really thank you to give some chance to manage the workshops. I'm quite exciting to work with Taesong, and we are going to try many different things in terms of discussion or in terms of some producing interesting intellectual ideas through the workshops. So I really want you to guys having together in the future. And we are today very briefly about what we are going to think, what we are thinking for next year, very, very shortly in short time. So we didn't really write down our text, but we are just thinking what we are going to do as a general term. So maybe it's time to present of that.
That would be great.
So, right. Just a second.
I didn't know there was a formal presentation. Yay.
It's not the formal.
Modest. Koreans are modest. Asians are modest.
Yeah.
Can you see the main pages?
Yeah.
Is it working?
Now it's full screen. Yes.
Yep,
Okay.
it's working. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna start a little bit, and then Daesung will join the presentation. And we are starting looking at theme as evolutions. So I think the evolution theory is very important. Theories making impact on the architectural discourse. So we are taking those things as a theme. So as you know, Darwin is father of this. So he said life is evolved by differentiation, survivors, and breeding in natural selections. Also, it explained diversity and exquisiteness of life. Also, the Nobel Prize winners, he's Stefan Powers. So he discovered technology and results. So Homo sapiens is evolved by Neanderthal partly. So in a way, we are in the process of growing as part of nature as a human. So we are starting thinking on architectural evolutions. So I think we thought human evolution all the time, relations between social system, relationship, and ritual, machine, etc. So mainly I said social system and relationship, and Daesung said social machine. I thought that term is a similar kind of similarity. So in a way, for my part, as one part as architect, and I'm really interested in how social system and rituals making relationship between architectural special structures as apparatus in reality. And also Daesung as really interesting is how to make hypothetical model based on the social machine. So maybe two parts will be, I think, interpreted by tutors. And then maybe you want to make some kind of discussion between real architecture things or hypothetical models. So I'm gonna give you a very short example what I'm thinking, and I have looked at the housing blocks in Korea, and first of all the urban hanoks, and urban hanok developed by Jung Se-kwon, left side of person. Then he make and design and then sell like a modified and then developed very small size of hanok. And it because of the many Joseon people, Korean people moved to the Seoul as urban life. And also right side is Guro Gongdan and Guro Industrial Factory. And many workers came to Seoul to live and work. And by those two social experience, and left side of Hanok, urban Hanok has been developed of Garidong Beoljip. So I think those two are having some kind of similar typology or similar types of structure, but it has been changed a lot based on the Korean traditional Hanok. So I thought that real architecture, real condition of architectural apparatus has been developed or has got experience influenced by social condition. So I really wanted to ask those tutors what kind of relationship between social condition and architecture, and then what we can find as theory out of that. And Daesung will present this part.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different from Jaewon. I'm looking into the rule set. So I'm really looking at the how you unit interpret the social rule set into the algorithmic theory, and then the algorithmic theory runs like you know, some kind of structural phenomenon or forming knowledge. So yeah, that's it. So it's more like a evolutional theory. But I'm not really, you know, push onto the specific the cellular automata things. I'm more look into the how you interpret or how you digest a unit own agenda into the unit own agenda. That's it. Jaewon, next page. That's it. Okay, it's done. Nothing.
This is what we have now. So maybe we are going to maybe write down some text, and then we are preparing some next year, maybe in this year. So we are maybe sending some kind of application or text later on. So the thing is, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I mean, honestly, already, I mean, each unit already touched those kind of evolution thing already in their process. So I think how you understand as a evolution in architecture, and those things is a more interesting point in next workshop
Right.
in terms of social algorithm.
Yeah, also I think we are, what I'm really wanna ask the tutor is, we wanted to have a maybe discussion and argument between what kind of architecture really comes out of thinking of social structures, social systems, social relationship, political things. And maybe architecture will be different, right? So maybe we can get a discussion between what is different between different units, etc. So that will be our some kind of specific, not specific, but our goals. So in a way, I think we can get a more feedback each others to develop their own thinking on their own agenda. Yeah,
And
so I
also
think
another thing is, it's not necessary to suggest architectural proposal at the end. We are more open. So I mean, stage by stage, or if you have a clear aim and scope, it's okay with the research only. I mean, so I'm not really pushed onto the architectural outcome at the end. Means walls and column and roof kind of stuff.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting.
I think it's really interesting, and we are also really excited to have our new team leading. But also for tutors who are interested in next year, I think you can just get this title keyword of evolution, because we are really open, and we don't want to constrain people, I guess, as a committee. Yeah, and we also happy to hear your experience as tutors, also as students who experienced who worked with us. So this is something that we are building together. Of course, this is not going to happen if we are not here together, right? So.
Okay.
And Taesong and Jaewon, I'm curious about next year. So what is the big thing that is different from this year, or maybe there is none?
We don't know yet.
The format is going to be similar, right? It's gonna be 10 days.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I don't know. Actually today I wanna get some feedback of our workshop program and duration and way
I
of
think they're really
doing.
open.
Yeah, and also the mode of scripts, etc. So I wanna really listen from the oral tutors about some good things or bad things, for something to improve, whatever. Yeah, and
And some
also
comments from students as well, I think,
Yeah,
as the participants.
yeah, and
Yeah,
also,
I think it's a really good combination, because we have some new tutors, also some old tutors, and we have some
Old.
that's
Old.
really important, because some fresh perspective to see us, to see what is our
and I think for the I don't know, but I haven't spoke with Dasong, but I think for differentiation, I think I really want the workshop to develop each tutor's idea further. So workshop will be part of, I think, very small laboratory at least. So I think each tutors having to whatever they want. But I think we would like to discuss very, I think, in very tough moment. I would like to really discuss for I think developing own idea. So in a way, I think for mid crit or final crit, we trying to make some kind of specific themes or specific argument in order to discuss more, I think, rather than just crits. Because for the workshop, I think student crit is not necessary because students is following the unit brief and then they are doing their own things. So workshop needed to criticize on the unit rather than student works, individual works.
Mhm.
So I think that's gonna be what I wanna try to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Now I
also
know.
want to stress that in our kind of environment or this network, it's good. It's a very good opportunity for us, everybody here, to expose ourselves to other people who is not interested in or like working on what we are doing every day.
Mm.
For example, I'm in SciArc, Jimmy, we are always working with same kind of people. We are always discussing same things. But for some other people, it's not very obvious, But I think this is a very good opportunity to kind of have that exchange. And I think it's very valuable because I think it's not easy to have this.
Okay.
We all appreciate this opportunity. Yeah, let's make
Yeah.
the best use of it. Yeah.
That's the best use of it, I think, because there are rare opportunities to have different agenda people gathering in a very serious academic environment and discuss about it, spending time.
Okay.
Any suggestion from tutors maybe or students?
Yeah, we opened.
Comments? We are also
It's
open for
difficult.
like back chats. Yeah, so
I think
feel
we
free
need
to
to have
email
a
us or chat.
we need to have a beer right now
Yeah.
or something. Let's have beer
Okay.
maybe together in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in beer
Let's
mode,
aim.
but not there. So
Yeah. So
Okay,
maybe
then
yeah. So
let's call it a day then.
okay, can I just ask two more things? So for tutors, if you can think about what do you want to do next year, what would it be more beneficial for your research itself, and what do you think it can be contributed to us as a network of people who are interested in different things but gathering together? And if you have some suggestions for us how we organize it, we are really open to listen to all those suggestions. And yeah, of course, we want you guys to come back next year.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you for sharing your very precious time.
Yeah,
with
thank you for extra works for this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
really.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate.
Yeah.
By the way, maybe I can just add one more things for like, I think all the committees know. So, like I mentioned, for the tutors, like I told you, like we told you through the email. So we are having a plan to publish our previous works. So if you
Right.
didn't submit your I mean, so it would be really great, like if you can send us some kind of text, some text about this presentation. Yeah, it would be really great. So if you didn't submit
Yeah,
yet,
we always
and-
wanted
yeah.
to publish, and we are
Yeah.
asking like 5,000 words, and then 3,000 words, and then 2,000 words, and 15,000, and then 500 words.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
So
yeah, we don't want to bother you guys or add too much burden, but we also want to have some solid output out of this, so it's beneficial for everybody. Yeah.
I think we can we probably need a more conversation about that with each
Yeah,
individual
probably,
tutors.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, just let you know. Yeah.
But that is
Ah.
also kind of, we cannot push everybody as an obligation. That's why we are kind of seeing if you're interested in putting more work to add a little bit of extra work to create some proper publication. I'm laughing because I'm not doing it, but I know I have to, but yeah, it would be great to have something solid that we can publish. Thank you
Yeah,
for
I
bringing
mean,
it.
for all the tutors and directors, I think it's time to write.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
right.
and also writing always help
Mhm.
to sort of,
We have enough production.
yeah, develop
Yeah.
your thinking as well. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for coming,
thanks
everyone.
for coming, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great lunch.
Weekend, yeah.
The rest of the day. Yeah. Good night.
Good night,
Night.
good evening.
Good night. Good afternoon. Good day. Have a
Good
good day.
morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.